Look at him, Your Honor. Just look at him. Natalie's voice didn't just fill the courtroom. It curdled the air. I felt the heat of 100 eyes boring into the back of my neck. Lawyers, clerks, and most painfully, my own children sitting in the front row. Natalie leaned toward the judge, her face a mask of practiced, tragic grace. Jordan Hayes isn't just a failure, she spat, her finger pointing at me like a loaded weapon. He's a parasite, a worthless, deadbeat father who sat in the shadows while I built our life. He can't even put bread on the table for his own kids. He's a ghost of a man, and today I'm finally exorcising him from our lives. The room went deathly still. My daughter Mia let out a small, broken sob that felt like a physical blade between my ribs. My son Ethan looked at me, not with love, but with a terrifying, hollow disappointment. In that moment, according to the official record, I was a broken man. I was the nothing she claimed I was. But Natalie didn't see the flash drive tucked inside my lawyer's leather briefcase. She didn't know that for 8 months, I had been the silent architect of her own destruction. She thought she was delivering my funeral oration. She had no idea she was actually signing her own confession. The courtroom felt like a pressure chamber, the kind that crushes the lungs before it breaks the spirit. Room 4B was a place of sterile judgment, smelling of lemon polish, old paper, and the cold, metallic tang of fear. I sat at the defense table, my spine a rigid line of iron, watching the woman I had loved for nearly 2 decades transform into a total stranger. The courtroom felt like a pressure chamber, the kind that crushes the lungs before it breaks the spirit. Room 4B was a place of sterile judgment, smelling of lemon polish, old paper, and the cold, metallic tang of fear. I sat at the defense table, my spine a rigid line of iron, watching the woman I had loved for nearly 2 decades transform into a stranger. Natalie stood up. She didn't just rise, she performed. She adjusted her navy blazer, the one I bought her for our 15th anniversary, and turned toward Judge Harlan. She didn't look at me. She looked through me, as if I were already a ghost. Your Honor, she began. Her voice had that perfect, practiced tremor, the sound of a woman who had spent weeks crying in front of a mirror to get the pitch just right. Jordan Hayes is a ghost, a deadbeat, a man who has spent years riding the coattails of my hard work, while he withered away into nothingness. He can't feed his children. He can't lead this family. He is a hollow shell provider, and I am tired of carrying his corpse across the finish line. The words weren't just lies. They were heat-seeking missiles aimed at my soul. In the gallery, I could see Mia, our 14-year-old, looking at the floor, her shoulders shaking. Ethan, only 12, was staring at me with a look of confused betrayal that hurt worse than any bullet. Natalie's lawyer, a shark in a 3-piece suit, began passing out folders, the evidence of failure. I didn't flinch. I didn't sigh. I just watched the clock. Because Natalie didn't realize that while she was playing checkers with my reputation, I had already finished a game of chess. My name is Jordan Hayes. For 18 years, I was the engine of the Hayes household. Natalie and I started our logistics firm, Apex Flow, in a humid garage with 2 laptops and a shared dream. I was the architect, the man who built proprietary routing software, the one who stayed up until 4 a.m. negotiating shipping lane contracts and ensuring we were compliant with every federal regulation. Natalie was the face. She was charismatic, beautiful, and brilliant at PR. I thought we were a unit. I was wrong. The rot started 3 years ago when Victor Kane entered the picture. He was a growth consultant with expensive veneers and a habit of touching Natalie's shoulder a second too long. While I was in the warehouse or the server room, they were in the strategy suite. Slowly, the gaslighting began. It started small. I'd come home to find the kids already fed. Oh, we didn't think you'd be home, Jordan. You're always so focused on those little numbers of yours, Natalie would say with a pitying smile. Then the financial sabotage began. I started noticing glitches in our accounts. Premium contracts with long-term clients like Overture Global, contracts I'd secured, were suddenly being canceled, only to be picked up by a shell company called NV Strategic. I was the one who had to tell our staff we couldn't do bonuses. I was the one who took the heat when vendors weren't paid. Natalie would stand in front of the employees and say, I'm trying to fix Jordan's mistakes. Please bear with us. At home, she was worse. She told Mia that I was gambling our savings away. She told Ethan that the reason I couldn't make his basketball games wasn't because I was working a second job to cover our mortgage, but because I was hiding from the family. She turned my home into a war zone where I was the invading force. The statistics for this kind of silver-tongued betrayal are staggering. According to family law researchers, nearly 35% of high-conflict divorces involve some form of parental alienation, where one parent systematically brainwashes the children against the other. Furthermore, financial infidelity, the hiding of assets or the intentional tanking of the shared business, is cited in over 40% of contested divorce cases involving business owners. Natalie wasn't just a disgruntled wife. She was a statistic of calculated malice. She believed that if she could prove I was worthless, the court would hand her the keys to the kingdom, the $4 million house, the $12 million business, and most importantly, the souls of our children. I could have fought back early. I could have screamed. I could have confronted Victor in the parking lot. But I knew Natalie. If I showed my hand, she'd burn the cards. So I became the man she wanted the world to see. I acted broken. I let her insult slide. I watched Victor Kane sit at my dining room table and eat the steak I paid for. I slept on the couch for 6 months, enduring the deadbeat whispers from the woman I once would have died for. Every night, while the house slept, I worked. I didn't use the home Wi-Fi. I used a burner hotspot and a laptop I kept in a locker at the gym. I worked with a forensic accountant named Marcus, a man who specialized in finding money hidden by people much smarter than Natalie. We found the trail. It was a masterpiece of fraud. Natalie and Victor hadn't just rerouted contracts. They had created a secondary billing system. They were overcharging our vendors and skimming the surcharge into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. They had even forged my signature on a document that supposedly relinquished my shares of Apex Flow in the event of a performance failure. I had everything. The IP addresses from their secret emails, the photos of them at the luxury condo they bought with stolen company funds, and the recorded conversations where Natalie laughed about how pathetic I looked eating tuna out of the can to save money. Back in room 4B, Natalie's lawyer was wrapping up. Your Honor, Mr. Hayes is not just a failure as a businessman. He is a vacuum of a father. He has no assets, no plan, and no shame. We asked for everything. The judge, a man named Harlan who had a reputation for smelling a lie from a mile away, looked at me. Mr. Hayes, your counsel has been very quiet. Do you have anything to present before I rule on temporary support and custody? My lawyer, a soft-spoken woman named Elena, who had been waiting for this moment for half a year, stood up. She didn't yell. She didn't point fingers. She simply handed a USB drive to the court clerk. Your Honor, Elena said, her voice cutting through the room like a diamond. We have one question for the petitioner, Mrs. Hayes, under oath. Natalie looked bored. Fine. Ask. Elena looked her dead in the eye. Mrs. Hayes, did you, on the afternoon of October 14th, authorize a wire transfer of $420,000 from the Apex Flow Emergency Payroll Fund to an account held by NB Strategic, a company the court has no record of, but which is registered to your maiden name and Mr. Victor Kane? The color didn't just leave Natalie's face. It evaporated. I don't know what you're talking about. Business expenses are complex. Let's make it simple then, Elena interrupted. The projector screen behind the judge flickered to life. Slide 1. The wire transfer receipt, signed with Natalie's digital thumbprint. Slide 2. An email from Natalie to Victor. He's so broken he hasn't even checked the payroll account. By the time the judge sees him, he'll look like the man who let his employees starve. We're almost clear. Slide 3. A video from a hidden nanny cam I'd installed in the office, not the bedroom, the office, showing Natalie and Victor laughing as they shredded the original vendor contracts. The courtroom went silent. It was a silence so heavy it felt like it was physical. One more thing, Your Honor, Elena said. She played an audio clip. It was Natalie's voice, clear as a bell, talking to Mia. Your father doesn't love you, Mia. He's trying to take the house. so he can sell it and leave us. I'm the only one protecting you." Mia let out a strangled sob in the gallery. She looked at her mother, and for the first time, she saw the monster behind the mask. Judge Harlan didn't even wait for the closing statements. He slammed his gavel so hard the wood chipped. "I am referring this matter to the district attorney immediately for perjury, grand larceny, and felony wire fraud," he thundered. "The petitioner's request for custody is denied. Mr. Hayes is granted temporary sole occupancy of the marital home. All accounts associated with Mrs. Hayes and Mr. Kane are frozen effective immediately." The collapse was total. Natalie wasn't just divorced. She was dismantled because the money she had stolen was marital property and company assets. Her attempt to hide it triggered a massive IRS audit. She was ordered to pay back $1.8 million in restitution and damages. Since she had drained our joint accounts to pay Victor, she had nothing left. Victor Kane didn't stay to help her. The moment the DA issued a warrant for questioning, he cleaned out their secret escape account, the one Natalie thought only she could access, and vanished. She was left with a mountain of debt, a criminal record, and a reputation that was radioactive. Today, Natalie lives in a studio apartment above a laundromat. She works as a freelance cold caller, a job that pays her just enough to cover her court-mandated restitution payments to me. Every month, I receive a check for $1,200. I don't spend it. I put it into a trust fund for Mia and Ethan, a fund they can only access once they finish therapy to undo the damage she caused. As for me, Apex Flow is no longer just a small operation. Without the leeches draining the accounts, the business exploded. We hit $15 million in annual revenue last year. I hired the employees Natalie tried to fire, and I gave them the bonuses they deserved. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was the night, 6 months after the trial, when Ethan came into my room. He didn't say anything at first. He just sat on the edge of the bed and finally looked me in the eye. "Dad," he whispered, "I'm sorry I believed her. I'm sorry I thought you were weak." I pulled him into a hug. "Silence isn't weakness, son." I told him. "Silence is waiting for the truth to get its boots on." Mia is graduating high school this year. She's going to study forensic accounting. She wants to make sure no other father has to sit in a courtroom and be called worthless while he's secretly saving the world for his kids. The woman I am with now, Sarah, was our lead auditor during the recovery. She saw me at my absolute lowest, when I was eating tuna out of a can and fighting for my life, and she loved a man who stayed silent more than the man who was rich. If you're going through a storm right now, if someone is lying about you, stealing from you, or trying to turn your own blood against you, remember this. The loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. The truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to wait. Would you have the strength to stay silent for 8 months while your world burned, just to ensure the fire eventually consumed the person who started it? Drop a yes in the comments if you believe in the power of the silent long game. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every story you share. If this story reminded you that justice is a slow-cooked meal, like and subscribe for more. We release these deep dive stories of betrayal and reckoning every week. Because sometimes the best way to win a fight is to let your enemy think they've already won.